This is what had fashionistas worldwide swooning, a dress straight out of Cinderella. Worn by actress Claire Danes, beautiful in daylight, it blossoms in darkness. Fiber optics were woven into silk organza. There are 30 little battery packs in pouches and pouches.
Into the thick of it.
Hey!
Into the thick of it.
Damn.
Into the thick of it.
Gang.
Oh.
If you're new here, you're about to see my first ever sewing project drop on this channel. I've been wanting to make a dress inspired by the 2017 Met Gala dress worn by Claire Danes, designed by Zac Posen, for a really long time. I started planning out how to make this dress a couple months ago when I was watching Hot Lamode. His name's Luke. He's American. Anyway, he does fashion reviews and he's basically like a 20-year-old version of Joan Rivers come back into life. He's really cool. He was doing a roast and review of the Met Gala looks from this year, and I saw this comment in the comment section that was like, I wish people would do stuff like the Claire Danes Zac Posen look. And I remember writing back to that comment and saying I really want to try my hand at redesigning that dress. So I did a bunch of research. The dress is made of fibre optic fabric, and then I actually recently saw Crescent Shea did her own version of her own design of a dress out of fibre optic fabrics, and that was really, really cool. I decided that I really wanted to try my hand at making the fibre optic fabric from scratch or creating fibre optic stuff myself, mostly because I wanted an excuse to learn how to solder, because I've been wanting to get into creating lighted props for cosplay and costuming, because I think that is just super, super cool. I am not Zac Posen, I am not a seamstress. This is literally the third thing I've ever sewn and probably the first dress I've ever sewn, excluding that skirt that my mum backhand complimented me about as a child. So today is November the 13th. It's a Saturday. It's about 1:51 in the afternoon. I slept till noon and then got ready to film this video and go to the store. Speaking of, I need to go to the store because I've run out of organza, and to fully finish the dress, what I need is maybe anywhere between 4 and 8 meters of organza. My house is a mess right now. It's raining pretty hard outside, but it's warm, so that's fine. I don't really care about cycling in the rain. And while I cycle to the store, editing Ellen is going to take you through what she's done so far and why learning to solder for this project was actually completely unnecessary, because I decided to trigger electricians everywhere and just use hot glue. Cue the cycle montage. While I did successfully teach myself how to solder, and I did work out that separated battery packs would probably work, I realized that it was going to take way too long. So I went back to Amazon and I ordered some pre-made fairy light strings. Using my newly purchased Endglow fibre optic cable and my pre-made fairy lights, I basically followed the exact same method I had used for the soldered single LED lights. Each string, I just hot glued a bunch of roughly chopped Endglow fibre optics right on the tip of the lights, right where the bulb is. It's LED so it won't melt. And then I basically used some heat shrink plastic and then black electrical tape to block the light from escaping and make sure that it trained itself right down the fibre optic cable. It ended up looking super, super cool, and I was actually really happy with how this method turned out. It is very dodgy. It is very dollar store, but it worked, so I'm happy. The next step was to create the underdress. I purchased this pattern from Daisy's Pattern Parlor over on Etsy. The pattern worked really well, but as you'll see, I made some adjustments that didn't quite work out later on. I cut out 2 layers of fabric, one for the blue poly satin and one for the fairy organza purchased from Spotlight, and then I started stitching everything together on my sewing machine. I then pinned it all to my dress over my crinoline to make sure that I had the shape down pat, and from there it was a case of working out how to attach the fairy lights. If you plan on making something similar, learn from my mistakes. I think this whole project would have worked better if I had used the first dress layer as a kind of underdress and built maybe something like a girdle or panniers or a corset on top to add the lights into. My main issue ended up being needing to hide the cords and the electrical tape, which I knew from the moment that I had started doing that. My initial plan had been to put everything underneath the dress, but because I had the poly satin underneath, this didn't work. The lights didn't show through enough. So I began by stitching the cords of the fairy lights around my waist back and forth in a zigzag sort of style until they held themselves to the skirt. I also made sure to add layers of organza just by cutting strips, bunching them up, and then using a needle and thread to hand sew them into the skirt as an additional layer. I repeated this for the bodice. With the bodice, I made sure to flip the fibre optic cable upwards to train it to the bodice. I then realized that I needed to add some boning to the bodice before I actually added the lights and hot glued them to the underdress, so I hot glued boning inside of the bodice. This isn't the most professional or comfortable solution, but it worked in a pinch. I used my heat gun to shape the boning how I needed it to sit and to make everything look good from the outside. That was my goal at this point, just look good from the outside. Again, very dollar store solutions here. Hello. That was weird. Why'd I flip the peace sign? I'm back from the store. I also switched lenses because when I got back from the store, I found that the postman had left me a gift, much like Santa Claus, confirming my theory that the postman is Santa Claus. The postman left me a 35mm lens, which I 100% bought for myself, so actually it wasn't a gift, but anyway. I'm in my cozy sewing clothes. I got completely soaked.
Around me are familiar.
I'm dumb. I got different fabric because I went to the wrong fabric store. I went to Lincraft when I had originally bought the organza from Spotlight. In Lincraft, they didn't really have any blue organza that was close to the same blue that I wanted, so I decided to get this much paler blue of what I think is chiffon, not organza. It's a lot softer than the organza that I have. It's not as like structured and you can't really see the like the threads as much. I went for this because I actually realized that this is really close to the color of the Claire Danes dress, which hopefully will end up giving my dress a little bit of dimension. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to sew a bunch of pleats and use this for the final finishing part of the dress, and everything else, including the, there's a baby outside, including the fairy organza that I have now ordered more of online, which means I won't finish this dress till next week anyway. That's all just going to be like the petticoat layers underneath, and I'm laying the organza on the actual dress in like little strips so that I can pull out parts of the fibre optic lights and get those endy pretty bits of the lights coming through. Will the plan work? Well, I don't know because I don't know how to plan. Roll the sewing montage. For this final part of the dress, I pleated a bunch of strips of fabric and hand stitched them to the bodice, tucking the lights underneath and trimming them to shape. Good morning. It's a couple days later and I'm halfway through packing up the entirety of my life in that pile of boxes behind me, just there. But I'm also probably 90% of the way done with this dress. I basically have a few little things left to do. Where can I prop this camera up in a way that you can't see my trash hole of a house? I have a couple of things that I need to finish off with the dress, but I will show you what I have done. Meanwhile, I've been packing. And does your regrowth also say, hey, I just got out of a 3-month quarantine? Please ignore my mess. I'm not building an alien head. That's for another video. Okay, so I'm not very good at sewing, but this is what I've come up with so far. A pleated bodice, which works really well to hide all of the electrical cables and stuff. All these fiber optics that are poking out are gonna poke out in a different way, so they look a little bit neater. And then I've slowly been working on this here little skirt overlay to try and give a bit of folded Cinderella goodness. I love the way these pearl pins look on this light blue fabric, and I wish that I had a bunch of pearls to add to this project, but I don't right now. I have some pearls coming for a different project, but yeah. So down here, this is part of the pleated bodice. I'm gonna chop this off. This is looking a little rough, whereas this is looking like pretty close to done. Hey, whose back is that? That's a good posture. So what I need to get done is basically just finish this pleating, this skirt overlay, pull out all the fiber optics ends the way that I want them to pull out, and then it's all just closures. And hopefully the closures won't be too difficult because I'm just putting a zip in the back of the skirt, and then I'm just gonna do a little rivet. Are they called rivets? Little like rivets. I've got an awl that I'll poke holes through the back through. I should have added another panel to the back of this bodice before I started doing all this, but I didn't because I don't know how to sew and I don't know what I'm doing. But yes, that is the plan for today. Essentially, literally just finish the dress and then it's done, and then I can get some photos and it will be done and the project will be done and my month of November project will be done, and then I'm gonna start my December project. And to my December project, I really want to make a set of Civil War era underwear and Photoshop myself into Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, because I think that would be really fun. Hello! So it is time for the reflection. Bum, bum. I don't know a drum set or know how to play any music. Okay, so things I could have done better are a lot. I am happy with the end result of this project, but obviously considering I don't know how to sew / what I'm doing at all, I think there are so many things that I could have done better, including just the general construction of the dress and finishing details and closures and just sort of like actually paying attention to how I should do things. Overall though, I think it turned out fine, and it pretty much turned out how I expected a dress like this would turn out for someone with absolutely no sewing experience. We still managed to get a couple fire picks. I've sorted out my regrowth also since the beginning of this project, so that's a good thing. That's always a good thing. I really enjoyed making this project. I think overall the dress took 17-ish afternoons to complete, so that's from about, let's say, 6:30 p.m. till midnight almost every night this month. Overall, I've learned a ton. I've learned how to use an awl. I've learned how to not exactly put closures in. I've learned how to use certain fabrics. I've learned some pleating skills. I think all of that is valuable knowledge to add to my learning repertoire of how to craft. And that's really the main point of anything I produce or any like idea I get. I don't always care so much about the end product as I care a lot about the journey to get there and what I learn along the way. So, not to be corny, that's generally what I enjoy about making art, is the making process, not the finished result. Obviously it's not the most beautifully designed dress. It looks a little bit like something you would buy off Wish for 40 bucks, and it would have like bridesmaid dress in the tags and like have a really beautiful photo that some like really good designer had made and that the Wish store had just stolen off Pinterest. I get that, but I would say this is definitely the beginning of my sewing journey, and I have 2 sewing things I want to complete in December that I would like to complete, and hopefully I'll make them much more nicely. But it was an idea, it was a choice, we made our choices, and now this is the video we're uploading. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to subscribe. If you enjoy watching people struggle and sometimes succeed and sometimes make weird art choices, then you should subscribe to this channel because it's all about making weird art choices. Come hang out with me and I will take you on a journey through my various art choices. I'm making a bunch of Christmas decorations at the moment for my Christmas tree that are all like Victorian inspired, and I'm wondering if you would like to see a video on that. I will see you later.